Hi there, my name is Lo. Welcome to my channel where I discuss everything between Hermes and grocery bags. So today I wanted to unbox my Aspinal of London Lottie large bag with you. Today I am working from home, so it is my lunch break, but I'm just very excited to unbox this bag. And this time of year there's also not a lot of daylight, so I'm just taking my lunch break right now to unbox this with you. Also quite a bit of story time around this bag, but we'll get to that later. Let's just first get it out of the box. So I ordered this directly from Aspinal of London itself. It's kind of a non-descriptive box, which is good in principle, though I have to say that they did put on the label that it's coming from Aspinal of London and that the contents of this box are indeed a large Lottie, which will also tie in with my story time later of why I find that somewhat concerning. By the way, I just kind of peeled off most of what I could from the box in terms of private information. It didn't actually come with a label that was torn like this. One other noticeable thing about the condition of this box is that it came with a pretty big hole. When I reach into it, I can feel the bag, and luckily it is in the dust bag. You can already see the blue of the Aspinal dust bag over here. So of course that is a bit sloppy, but I'm not all too concerned about that. So let's open her up. Aspinal of London on the inside of the box. At least it comes in some wrapping paper. And here she is in the typical dark blue Aspinal of London dust bag with the red drawstrings. I have to say, without having unpacked this or unwrapped this, I thought this bag was going to be bigger because I doubted quite a bit between the large and regular size of the Lottie. But I went with the bigger size because I did really want to wear this as a shoulder bag. But I was taking into account that it was going to be pretty big. And here she is. As you can see, I got the quilted grained variant of the large Lottie in the taupe color, I think this is. So as far as I know, they carry this in black and dark blue and in taupe. Of course, they have plenty of other variants, but those don't have the grained quilting. So initial thought, indeed not super big. I am quite happy that I went with the size and not with a size down. Like the leather on the interior of the flap. Looks like a decent size on the inside. I really like the color on this. I thought it was going to be lighter, but it is indeed really more of a taupe and not a cream like I was perhaps expecting. So that's good because I don't do all too well with very light colored bags. I think this is going to match well with quite a number of outfits. The chain on this feels relatively light, but the chain is also wider than I had expected. So it might turn out to be quite comfortable to wear, but I was expecting a bit more weight on the chain on this. It feels beautiful, leather feels beautiful. It is a good balance, I think, between structured but yet quite squishy. So I think carrying it over the shoulder, it will squish quite well, but the base on this is quite sturdy. And upon first inspection, stitching looks really decent. Glazing on the edges here looks really decent, so not surprised, not disappointed. I think this is actually very much up to par or up to my expectations of an Aspinal bag. It is only a bit more squishy than I had expected, but that is actually kind of a positive surprise. It is indeed not as big as I had expected, but again, a positive surprise. And it makes me happy that I didn't go with the smaller version of this, or basically the regular version of this. So as you may have noticed, the audio in the first part of the video wasn't great. Unfortunately, my microphone is acting up a little bit and I don't know what is going on. However, it's kind of hard to reshoot an unboxing and genuine first impressions. So I decided to leave that in. But the second part of the video, obviously, I can reshoot. The added benefit is that I have taken this bag out for a spin once, so I would say that my first impressions are a bit more extended than if I wouldn't have used this bag. And also, the more time passes, the more twists and turns arise in my story around this bag, which is not great for me because I've been getting increasingly annoyed, but at least I am able to tell you a bit more of a complete story around that. So what were my first impressions around this bag? Let me do a bit of a tour of the bag as well while I talk about it. So I noticed that this bag is really quite squishy. I've stuffed it right now, so that makes it look a bit more structured, but you can actually tell as I push this in. That is really quite a squishy bag, only the base of this is quite sturdy. That does make it quite comfortable to wear. It has this typical Aspinal opening that you see on the Lotties. A magnetic closure is easier to work with, but altogether it's not all that difficult. Especially opening is fine, just lift it up and pull up the flap. The closing is a bit more difficult because you do have to maneuver it back in, but because this leather does taper in a little bit, it's not all that difficult to put it through the slot. It has some nice detailing here on the front. It says Aspinal. Also on this little rotating bolt or whatever you want to call it, it says Aspinal London. Detailing on this is really nice. The bottom of the bag does have feet, and because the base is quite structured, these feet are also actually quite helpful. I really like the wide back pocket on this bag. It also does close with a magnet. As I was using this, I just put my public transport card in there, and because it's a relatively big bag with a very wide pocket on it, that was just very easy to reach for, yet I felt that the magnet was keeping it safe and down in the pocket. Then the chain on top of the bag. I kind of have mixed feelings about this. It is a fairly wide chain, which is nice. On my bag, the leather is not woven sort of equally all the way through. I know that they generally tend to give a bit more leather when they weave it through a chain so that you sort of have enough space to maneuver it, but this is still something that I need to put in place because I feel like the leather sometimes really sticks out. Aside from that, this chain, I wouldn't say it feels flimsy, but it just feels lighter than I'm used to on other flat bags that I have with a chain of this size. So you could see that as a pro if you don't like to carry heavy bags and if you don't like heavy chains. I usually don't struggle all that much with the heaviness of bags, especially not if a chain is doubled up over my shoulder. So personally I would have liked this to be a bit more heavy. Also because the chain runs through these sort of D-rings at the top rather than having grommets, you're not able to put the chain in the bag all that easily. So I just have it hanging in my closet on the chain on a bag hook. But overall still really like the color on this. I was realizing that all of the bags that I got from Aspinal seemed to be lighter on the website than they are in person, which for me is okay, especially with this bag. I'm glad it's more of a taupe than a cream color. But I do think it's something to be mindful of, especially because I've viewed their items on multiple devices and they always seem lighter than they actually are. So I think it's more of a matter of the photography than of my device not being calibrated to reality. I am still happy that I went with this size, so with the bigger size instead of the regular Lottie. When I unboxed this, I was thinking this is actually not so big, but then when I put it on me, I realized it was still quite a big bag. So I still wouldn't say it is like an extremely large bag. I think it looks good on me, but I'm also not a very petite person. This obviously all comes down to personal taste. I would have really loved for Aspinal to have sort of an in-between size of Lottie. So I think the regular one is like 21 centimeters and this is 28. If they could have had like 25, I think that would have been a great in-between width that I would also really enjoy wearing as a shoulder bag. But that rounds off my initial impressions of the bag. I will do a full review of this later when I've used it a bit more often, but purely just looking at the bag, it's a great addition to my collection. I really enjoy the color. Thus far it seems it wears comfortably and there's ample space for your stuff inside of this bag. So then, to continue with my story time. I already touched upon this a little bit on last week's video, but it's really like barely half of the story that I told you. So I ordered the Lottie on Black Friday. It was 50% off. I got an additional 10% discount on that day. They shipped it to me. I wasn't home, so they dropped it off at a pickup point and they left me a note in the mailbox saying that I was owed duties on this bag. That's not supposed to happen because Aspinal should take care of these charges before the item is delivered to you, but something went wrong. So it was delivered on a Tuesday. I got home from work. I reached out to them on Tuesday night via email because the chat was already closed. Next day I got an email back saying, apologies, we will sort this out with UPS. A week passes and I only have 2 weeks to pick up this bag, which should be ample time, but I'm already a bit annoyed that I'm waiting for a week to get my package, but that's okay. On Tuesday morning, I dropped them another message asking, hey, did you get an update about this? I think about 2 hours later, I get a promotional email from them saying that they have an additional 20% off selected items. I go onto the website and I see the Lottie is still there for the same price. And I figured, well, this is an additional 20%. I'm not really sure if I'm still getting my first order. So let me just order this again and the other one can go back. Later that day, I hear back from customer service saying we weren't able to figure it out with UPS. So we're going to send you this bag again. And of course I had already placed a new order. So I let them know, you know what, don't bother. I already reordered. I will just not pick up the first order and at some point in time it will go back to you. And I hope you do a better job with the paperwork on the second order. So I got a message back from them saying that is all fine, just don't pick it up. It will be shipped back to us and you'll get a full refund. So then that was Tuesday. On Thursday, this bag is delivered. However, I am again not home. This time it did go well on the paperwork. The only issue now was that they hadn't delivered it to my home, but they had delivered it to a neighbor and they didn't put down the address of that neighbor. I just got a message saying your package has been delivered to Jaap. So Jaap is kind of a generic, though not super popular Dutch name, but more importantly, I don't know any guy named Jaap in my neighborhood. And that kind of ties back also to the fact that it says on the box what the content of the box is, that with all of the fraud around online orders and packages and deliveries, I would really like for Aspinal to be a bit less transparent about what they are sending, because their items can be quite expensive, and if your package is delivered somewhere and you don't really know to whom, and you're kind of depending on the person who received it for you to then eventually drop it off to you because you don't know where it is, then it might not be super helpful that the contents of the box are stated on the box. And really not to say at all that I do not trust my neighbors. My neighbors are amazing, as you will learn a little bit later in this story, but I've seen packages being delivered to people in completely different streets on the same house number, for example, and then I would just really not prefer for the contents of the box to be mentioned on the box to avoid people being tempted to keeping your order because they know that the contents of the box are quite expensive. But okay, sorry for that little sidetrack. Again, I contact Aspinal of London that my package has been delivered. I just don't know to whom, and I asked them if they have a bit more information, because I really don't feel like randomly ringing neighbors' doorbells, especially if I know that they're not called Jaap, asking them if perhaps they have received a package from me. So I think the name also threw me off a little bit in that sense. Fortunately, when I came home from work, I saw that our neighbor had a package for my boyfriend, so I went over to collect his package. And then about half an hour, I think, after I sent the message to Aspinall to ask for more information, that same neighbor came over to our house saying, oh, you came to pick up a package. I actually forgot that there was also another package for you. So, of course, I was super happy and relieved and grateful that our neighbor was so nice to come over to deliver the package to me. I emailed Aspinall back that the package had found its way to me so that they didn't have to bother with further investigation or work. And that was it for this bag. However, then we still had the first order, right? So I got this on a Thursday, and then actually only the Thursday afterwards, which was past Thursday, they were going to ship back that order. So last Thursday I'm in the train and I get a message from UPS saying that I can pick up my package, but now from some sort of central distribution center in Utrecht, which I find kind of weird, but I figure perhaps they're sort of giving me a last opportunity to pick up my package before they ship it back to the UK. I wish they would have done that while it was still at my local pickup point, but hey, what do I know? So I didn't really look much into it anymore. I just assumed that they were going to ship it back to the UK. Then comes Saturday and I got a letter, a physical letter from UPS in my mailbox with an invoice saying that I still had to pay these import duties and that if I wasn't going to pay within 7 days, then of course they're going to charge me extra. I think Like, that gave me the most annoyance whenever companies start sending you invoices for things that you're not supposed to pay for, because then again you need to reach out to customer service, because if you have an open invoice and you don't pay it, it's going to be a world of pain. Like, the costs are just going to increase and they're just going to sell off your debt at some point in time, and some other agency is going to come after you, and once you reach that point, it's a massive pain, even if you actually don't have to pay that bill. So I saw that invoice. I decided to call UPS, even though it was a Saturday. Well, their Dutch customer service wasn't open, but fortunately I can speak English, so I could reach out to the English-speaking customer service. And I told them the whole story, and they basically say, well, this is an automatic invoice, you can ignore it. But that is sort of where the story ends for now. I got my Lottie bag, and even though objectively I really love it, the hassle around this bag has got me kind of bummed out. I wouldn't say I'm over Aspinal. Like, I still like the product, but I am really over ordering with Aspinal for now. Basically, for 3 out of 4 orders that I've placed with them, there's been some sort of issue. So 2 times an issue with duties and taxes, and then of course for this one that it was just delivered to I don't know who. I can understand it's also not completely Aspinal's fault. It's also partly with the shipping partners that they have. But my first 2 orders came with DHL. I've been finding with DHL that they do a better job in that sense. So the first time around they didn't get the right paperwork from Aspinal, but they did manage to sort it out, and also pretty quickly. So my order was only delayed by 1 day, and I knew up front that there were these tax issues with my order, because they just sent me an email first saying you owe us duties. With UPS, however, I don't want to use bad words on YouTube, but I can just say I'm disappointed. I'm annoyed that they don't inform you about duties and taxes up front, but that you basically just learn when the delivery guy is at your door, that once the package has been delivered to a pickup point, for example, that apparently they cannot figure it out with the sender anymore to correct for it. So you basically just have to pay the duties or you forego your order. And then the final thing was just dropping my relatively expensive package off at an unknown place. I'm really just fed up. I'm fed up with UPS, but knowing that Aspinal also doesn't do an amazing job each and every single time in their paperwork, their letter of acceptance for the duties, I just cannot be bothered. I cannot be bothered to have to reach out to customer service 3 or 4 times when I place an order. So I know these are just first world problems. I'm also not going to let it ruin my day, or I'm not going to let it ruin my experience with this bag. It's really not all such a big deal, and I'm sure it's going to work itself out. So just to put that in perspective, I'm really not trying to make a very big drama around this. Also, I think it is important to be transparent about these things. The first time that I did a video mentioning this whole process around duties and taxes for Aspinal of London, there were a couple of viewers who reached out in the comments saying that the same thing had happened to them. Just be aware that if you're ordering from Aspinal directly to the Netherlands, they promise that they take care of your import duties. As I'm saying this, of course, make sure to check on the website if that is still the case, but it was the case when I was ordering. Be aware that they may make errors in the paperwork that they need to send along. If you are being faced with import duties and taxes, don't agree to them, don't pay them, because you don't have to. Just reach out to customer service if you get a notice up front. Refuse a package at the door if you're being asked to pay. Just ask the delivery person to drop it off at a pickup point. If you have paid the import duties because you were surprised, for example, which I can totally understand, also just reach out to customer service, ask for a reimbursement, because you are just not responsible for these duties. They promise that they will pay them, and they should. And overall, I've been finding that customer service is helpful, is understanding, is apologetic. I think they are likely to help you figure out a solution. So I don't want to scare you necessarily into not ordering with them, but for me personally, the balance between the products and the prices and the customer service which are overall pretty good. For me, it just doesn't weigh up to the customer experience that I've had ordering with them. So I'm just done for the foreseeable future. So sorry for this naggy video. I'm guessing it's perhaps not very enjoyable, but I hope you found it useful regardless. That will be it for today. Remember, there's a styling, a situation, and a taste for everything, so don't judge. Wear whatever the bag you like. Until next time, I want to wish you a very Merry Christmas. So today I'm not rounding off by saying doei, but I'm rounding off by saying fijne kerst.